Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. This is part 3 for this news report. Today it's Tuesday, February 19th, 2013. I'm Darko. Alright, we finished up with this, talking about the Russians and talking about the recent meteor hitting Russia. And this came to this article, Russia to spend billions on asteroid defense. So very coincidental. We talked about Werner von Braun, basically talking about a space threat and how it was going to be used to build up or weaponize space, and so just a lot of evidence pointing towards this. Also about the demonization of Russia as the enemy, and they have killer satellites, right? Well, like I said, Russia and the U.S. both are developing or have developed directed energy weapons, i.e. lasers, and they both want to. They both basically dominate space. China's trying to get up there too. But they're the two main ones. I don't buy the whole thing about us versus them. I believe the U.S. is an occupied country, just as Russia is by the same group. So let's just continue there. Russia's double dealing in arms to Assad regime leaves UK isolated over Syria. So someone asked me, well, do you think that Russia was attacked by the U.S.? To kind of warn them or something to back off. He was considering Syria, to back off Syria. I was thinking maybe it just had something as simple to do with something as simple as gas pipelines, but who knows? Continuing sales to regime leave UK isolated over strategy for Syria. So Russia has been accused by Western diplomats of reneging on a pledge to stop supplying arms to the Syrian regime. The assurances made over a month ago were presented by British officials as a sign that the Kremlin was distancing itself from President Assad. So, but they had contracts that went back into the day. So, and they're still fulfilling them. That's what all the articles say. So, I don't know if they ever actually had intentions to stop them. From what I read, they didn't. So, I don't think they really reneged on anything. But either way, Russia sends 4 more warships to Mediterranean Sea near Syria. Flotilla of 4 Russian ships is heading to the Mediterranean Sea near the Syrian waters. The ministry said in a statement to Russia media on Tuesday that the 4 warships will join an escort ship and smaller vessels which are currently on duty in the area. So according to Russian news agency, it says here that these warships could be tasked with basically evacuating Russian citizens from Syria, although they keep saying that it's never happened yet. So Russian nuclear bombers over U.S. territory. Hours before Obama's State of the Union address, 2 Russian nuclear-armed bombers circled the western Pacific island of Guam, an organized, unincorporated territory of the United States. It said it's the latest sign of growing strategic assertiveness of Moscow towards the United States. This is coming from Freedom Outpost. I don't know. Is it us versus them and stuff like that? Either way, it says that these strategic bombers were equipped with nuclear-tipped cruise missiles. The bombers were followed closely by U.S. jets. The Washington Free Beacon reported on this. Going to keep moving here for time's sake. You have this, staging false flag attacks in Syria. So on January 22nd, most of you have already seen this, but I'm tying it in with this. A telling leak cropped up in the internet. British defense contractor's Britain server was hacked. It says here this files of the firm released to the public. Again, of course, this could be just a controlled leak and stuff like that to keep people guessing, but it says here, the mail dated December 24, 2012, sent by Britain's Defense Business Development Director to Dynamic Director of the firm, Philip Doty, who is a former SAS officer. It says, we got a new offer. It's about Syria again. Qataris propose an attractive deal and swear that idea is proved by Washington. Will deliver these chemical weapons to Homs, a Soviet-origin G-shell from Libya, similar to those that Assad should have. They want us to deploy our Ukrainian personnel that should speak Russian and make a video record, basically dependent on Russia. Frankly, I don't think it's a good idea, but the sums proposed are enormous. Your opinion? So, if they get desperate enough, like Israel is, because they're not getting what they want, the regime change that they want, they might do this. It says here, lifting the veil, Mideast covert ops, the death of an Iranian general in Syria, and the death in an Israeli prison of an Australian linked to Israel's intelligence exposed the shadow war in the Middle East. It just came out today that this guy was killed by Mossad for possibly to avoid exposing, quote, secrets. The assassination of an Iranian general in Syria and the discovery of the mysterious death of an Israeli prison of an Australian link to Israel's intelligence have once again exposed the murky and complex shadow war being fought in the Middle East. So it says here that These two events, separated by more than 2 years, have also turned up intriguing links between or with Israel's drive to prevent its enemies acquiring missiles and other advanced weapons that could bring about the long-feared war between the Jewish state and its Muslim adversaries. So, then you have U.S. firm blames Chinese army unit for hacking American businesses. U.S. cybersecurity firm has publicly accused the Chinese military of carrying out a series of internet-based attacks on American and foreign companies, and one of the most detailed reports to date alleging such activities officially condoned in China. Russian lawmaker's body found cemented in barrel. I know many of you guys have seen this, but a lot of propaganda wars going on right now. You're seeing in the news about a U.S. adopted Russian child that was killed by their caregiver or foster parent in Texas. So again, this is, you can see the kind of underlying propaganda war that's going on right now. It sounds really scary and everything, but the guy was what? The way they wrote this beginning paragraph, they were trying to make it downplay it, saying that, you know, the body of the Russian lawmakers found cemented in a barrel, and a former government official has been accused of ordering the killing over an $80 million debt. So, I don't know, that's just the way I see it. They're trying to say that, oh, well, it was just over an $80 million debt. $80 million debt, like someone said in the comment board when I first read this article, that's enough for anybody to get killed anywhere in the world over, if you know, that much debt. So Russia's richest country sees record number of billionaires in 2012. The number of Russians worth more than 1 billion reached 131 in 2012, a record in the country's history. It says the total assets of the Russian billionaires amounts to 450 billion, according to the ranking put together by CEO magazine. So yeah, pretty interesting. It says it's 12% more than last year's figure. And you got to remember, you have some very wealthy Zionists in that country as well that are entrenched in the political system in Russia, just as they are over here in the United States. The Great British Nanny export defies recession, so widespread redundancies in the banking sector, as well as pay cuts, long working hours, taking their toll on a range of sectors, with retailers in particular feeling the pain. But the British Nanny appears to be defying the trend as foreign demand remains strong, with Saudi princes, Russian oligarchs, busy executives and celebrities demanding a Mary Poppins-like figure to look after their children. So there you go. Sounds similar to, you know, Chinese coming over here and buying rich cars and expensive cars and buying rich real estate and gobbling all the property up over here in the West now. And of course you got the UK governments, US governments saying, come on, bring us your sick, bring us your poor. We don't have enough jobs for our own people, but hey, come on in, you know. And we're shifting to the economy here. EU austerity budget could widen gap between rich and poor regions. So it goes on here and says the austerity budget that's proposed for the European Union could mean an increase in poverty, instability, and economic inequality from 2014 to 2020. So I like how that 2020 is probably just beyond. The European Union's proposed austerity budget is drawing widespread criticism from activists who are fighting against poverty. They say that the cuts will increase economic disparity and place the continent's poor at even greater disadvantages. Many believe that the EU is jeopardizing its future by decreasing funds for social cohesion in order to pay off debts caused by high finance. That's, of course, the usury system. That's the people in your government that take on all the debt in your name and start the wars in your name. Abolish the income tax. You won't believe who's getting away with paying zero taxes while the middle class gets hammered. So it goes on here and it says that after seeing these numbers, is there anyone out there still willing to claim that our tax system is fair? It goes on here and says for taxes paid, please note that for 29 of the corporations a negative number is given. That means that the net tax liability for 2008 through 2010 was actually less than zero. So General Electric was what, 10 billion, and it was negative 4 billion. And you have Verizon, which was 32 billion, and it was a negative. It says here 900 million. And you can go in there and check it out. Links will be posted, but it's pretty crazy. You could just see this is what they call corporate welfare. So Facebook gets a multi-billion-dollar tax break. It hasn't drawn much attention, but Facebook's first annual earnings report contains an accounting gem, a multi-billion-dollar tax reduction or deduction for the cost of executive stock options and share awards. So it says here they reported $1 billion in pre-tax profits from U.S. operations in 2012. $1 billion. It will probably pay zero federal and state taxes and even receive a federal tax refund of about $429 million. Iran sentences 4 to death in biggest bank fraud case. So it goes on and says 4 people were sentenced to death on charges of corruption on earth and disrupting the country's economic system. So go in there and check it out. Back to Russia, you have Cyprus, a money laundering machine for Russian criminals. So Russia's booming underground economy and endemic corruption with its dizzying flows of illicit money, fed largely by oil and gas, is at the core of an 84-page report by Global Financial Integrity. It says here that they're advising the Russian government on how to tackle the problem, but buried deep inside this gem is the amounts and flows of Russian black money into and out of Cyprus. Cyprus is broke, as I'm sure most of you already know. Its bank carries on their books 152 billion euros in decomposing assets. So it says here, of these assets, 23 billion are non-performing, 130% of GDP. So the bank also sits on 26 billion euros in Russian black money. Then retail apocalypse, why are major retail chains all over America collapsing? So it says here, check out some of the store closings for 2013. It says here, Best Buy forecast store closings 200 to 250, Sears forecast closings, Kmart 175 to 225, Sears 100 to 125, JCPenney up to 350, Office Depot 150. Again, you can just keep going, check it all out. GameStop up to 500 to 600 stores. Radio Shack 450 to 550. It says here, Radio Shack is a nearby town just close up to where I live. This is all happening so fast it's hard to believe. Okay, then you have Fed's holding of U.S. debt hits another record. So apparently it's 1.7 trillion. The Federal Reserve holdings of U.S. government debt climbed to yet another record this week by close of business on Wednesday, February 13th. It says here is an increase of $10.7 billion. And sorry if I fudge those numbers. I'm a lot better with words than I am with numbers. But Alan Greenspan is back. So, and as always, ignoring the elephant in the room. On CNBC last night, Maria Bartiromo interviewed former money pumper Alan Greenspan about sequestration. He said here that I find it very difficult to find a scenario in which the sequester doesn't happen. The issue is how does it affect the stock market? The stock market is a key player in the game of economic growth. If the stock market can hold up through this, then the effect will be rather minor. Data shows that not only are stock markets a leading indicator of economic activities, all based off speculation, they are a major cause of it. In other words, speculation is what drives economic activity, drives growth. Speculation, right? That's why there's booms and busts and people lose a lot of money and wealth. So it goes on here and it says that Austrian school economists explain under the Federal Reserve System, Fed money pumping will have its first impact on capital goods sector. The stock market is the most liquid part of the capital goods sector. So it goes on here and says the stock market is a leading indicator of economic activity when the Fed is pumping money into the sector. Greenspan totally ignored the elephant in the room, that is Fed money printing, that is resulting in the manipulation boom. In other words, he picked up the tail in the middle of the story, ignoring Bernanke's money pumping in the same manner that he ignored his own money pumping when he was warned in December 1996 of irrational exuberance in asset prices. It says from the time he took over the Fed, of his irrational exuberance warning, money supply, or M2, increased by nearly $1 trillion, an increase of approximately 35%. It says Bernanke's money printing, he's doing the same thing at the present time. So they've increased the money supply M2 by approximately $3 trillion, an increase of 40%. Norway is ready to use rate cuts to cool the krone. It says here that the Norges Bank is ready to cut interest rates further to counter krone gains that interfere with the inflation target. It says if it gets too strong over time, leading to inflation that's too low, we will act. From Zero Hedge, currency wars are trade wars. It says everyone uses some combination phrase like protectionism and competitive devaluation. But it goes on here, it says if these two countries, A and B, engage in a tit-for-tat tariffs, the end result is restricted trade. If they each try to push their currency down, the end result is at worst to leave everyone back where they started. It says all in reality the stuff that's now being called currency wars is almost surely a net plus for the world economy. It says US, UK, Japan are pursuing expansionary monetary policy with currency depreciation as a byproduct. From Washington's blog, currency wars often lead to trade wars, which in turn can devolve into hot wars. And we'll leave off with this. G20 leaders agree to avoid currency war. But how about a trade war? This is GGN, I'm Darko. Thank you.